another episode of Hobby Night School. This is going to be a fun one because we don't really have a topic. We're going to talk about everything hobby related. We have someone who is so well versed in this space joining us that we were like, why limit ourselves to one thing when we could talk about anything?
I mean, look at behind him.
I know, it's insane.
Clearly a nerd. There is toys, there's basketballs, there's cards, there's bobbleheads, there's the whole shebang.
Even to highlight how much of a nerd I am, I also have Star Trek back here, so not just a card nerd.
You're singing the song of our people. We have Jake at 90s Basketball Cards. He is incredible, and we are so excited to have you here tonight, Jake. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm better now that I'm with you both. So
we feel the same. It's been a long day, and we chatted a little before we got on because we were like trying to decide what we want to talk about, and we decided we'll just talk about everything. And that's great.
I actually said, no, I'm going to hit record. Let's go.
He did. He was just like, and record. I'm like, okay.
Now, I will say, Jake, you're only the second person ever I've called a nerd, the first being Pancake Analytics. And so that's a term of endearment. That is not an insult. That is an absolute term of endearment. I hope that you feel that through your being.
Oh, yeah.
Based on your background, and then you added the Star Trek piece. I'm sure the shoe fits.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
we're all nerds. So these are our people. We like, I mean, how am I 40 years old and I like play with little pieces of cardboard and toys?
So I spent at the National, I was on the phone guiding Courtney, via do you see a door to your right? Okay, cool. Do you see this to your left? All right, take 10 paces forward, make a left. Go here, do this, because we were trying to purchase a card. My man is such a nerd. He had it all game planned out. He had emergency routes. He had maps printed out because he was on the hunt. He had his booth numbers prioritized about where he's going. How was the National for you?
It was a blast. It was chaotic. It was everything you could have asked for and a little bit more. Some of it you didn't ask for.
Asked for some air conditioning.
Yeah, I was gonna say like the hairy, sweaty arm that brushed up against me a couple times. I didn't ask for that. So.
Oh man, that gave me like all the hair on the back of my neck still because I know exactly the hairy, sweaty arm you're talking about. Because it touched me a few times, and I'm shorter than you, so I got it like sometimes in my cheek. That was a shoulder. I hope it was a shoulder.
Right. Yeah. I remember distinctly that feeling. I was like, okay, we're gonna keep on moving along.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, it was fantastic. It was a lot though. It was overwhelming, I think, is if you're gonna wrap it in one big word, overwhelming in all ways. So
yeah. So you talked about Pancake Analytics. He posted a meme today, the Homer Simpson meme, right? With all of the NFL stuff going on. And they're like, that's everybody's feed. There's so much crazy stuff going on. We have lawsuits. We have licenses being lost. We have, Fanatics versus Panini and like a knockdown, drag out fight to the death, it feels like right now, which, it's like David and Goliath, really, if we're being honest. What do you think about all of this? How's that feel? Like, is it like, are you worried? Are you like, what's going to happen?
Yeah, so I don't get worried because I collect stuff that doesn't really get heavily impacted. Like, I don't worry too much about some of the minutia. I just get out my popcorn and watch, watch what's going on. But I do pay attention because, I mean, even if I don't collect a lot of modern stuff, it affects the hobby, so it affects everybody, but yeah, I mean, it's exciting to hear news. Like, I would rather that than just kind of like sitting here waiting until 2026. Like, you see some movement, you don't know what exactly it means. I know we're like right now we're a little bit over 24 hours removed from just kind of that blast post that we saw from Ravel. So I think people are still kind of processing, and there's a lot of guesses out there. People are pontificating, and some of it, some of the takes I think might be a little self-serving for some people. So like one of the things yeah, I mean, that never happens in the hobby.
No, nobody does anything self-serving. This is a very just giving authentic place. We have these conversations. Everybody, anything that people say, they mean, and they mean what they say.
Everybody's absolutely authentic. 100%.
Yes, it's their real views. It's who they really are. So, yeah.
100%. Yeah. So one of the takes that I've heard multiple people have is that we're going to have no like licensed rookie cards from any NFL prospects this year, CJ Stroud, and that this is going to cause old wax to go up in price, and there's going to be a rush and all that kind of stuff. And I wonder how many of those people are sitting on old wax. So, I don't think that take is accurate. But
I don't understand that take. I heard that. I've heard that a lot. And I don't understand that take in this. This is why. You think that old wax is going to go up because you can't get new wax, but it's because people want the new wax that all of a sudden they're just going to be like, oh, well, I can't get new wax, so I'm just going to go buy something I don't actually want. That doesn't make sense to me. I'm not going to all of a sudden become like a hardcore vintage collector because I can't get new football. Like that just does not make sense to me.
I'm going to piss you. Sorry, I'm going to piss you off. And the one I'm in agreement with you guys. The one, just playing off of what you said, at every show after things were crazy when you couldn't even get retail, there would always be this random guy who would come up and he'd have like just a few hundred soccer cards.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be like, well, do you collect? And he's like, no. He's like, I was just so desperate to rip wax. This was the only thing I could get at Meijer. And so I do think there's a small segment of people that may, like, I can't get new football, so maybe I'll go back a couple of years. And
so I think where I'd push back on that is, I don't think that we're going to have no new football. I think people are saying that there's not going to be new NFL licensed football. So like putting myself back in the shoes of being, in the pandemic and we couldn't get retail, like I ripped stuff, modern stuff, but I'd rip what I could find, and sometimes that was NWSL cards. Sometimes it was unlicensed baseball prism. So I think people will rip stuff that's modern. They might go to different sports, or they might go with unlicensed stuff. But I think if I want to chase Bryce Young, I'm not going to all of a sudden go after Y.A. Tittle because I can't get Bryce Young.
I totally agree with you. And do you know what I found really surprising as like somebody, I don't really collect baseball. That's not my bag. Like recently, I would say I've gotten into collecting baseball, but very specific niche players for a very specific reason. I'm not like all of a sudden like, oh, I'm going to go prospect or whatever. I'm going back. I'm getting people who have, done something criminal that would make me want to buy their card. So my thing that has always surprised me is the amount of people that buy and like Panini, like baseball cards. Mm-hmm. And there is a lot of people that will buy that and pay good money. And look at Leaf. Leaf is out there making products for years that aren't licensed. So I don't disagree with you. Like if all this means to me for Panini is that, and this is where Panini's problem is. It's not necessarily the license. It's the problem for Panini is that they've never had good customer service and they don't have, like, their cards are all the same. Like the whole thing that had like licensing was that like, Prism is awesome because whatever reason the hobby has decided Prism is the rookie card to have. And without the Prism rookie, all their cards look the same. They use the same picture on everything. They're not like being innovative. So it's like, if you're not going to have a license and you're not being innovative, at least Leaf, like look at Leaf cards. They're crazy. They're like animal print cards. Like there's a whole ass peacock kind of card. And then the play. Like that is cool looking.
Yeah.
So that's more of the problem than the licensing at this point, in my opinion. Or it's both. It's both.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely see that. I'm not a big fan of Leaf cards, but they do try new things. And I think that they deserve some credit for trying different stuff. And some of the stuff is off the wall and some of it is really cool. And we saw the same stuff happen, in the 90s with some of those off, I just made a post earlier last week, this week, I can't remember, but Press Pass was the first company to make jersey cards. They predated the 97 game jersey. Now, Upper Deck saw that and they took it and they perfected it. They made it better. But, there was a lot of innovation happening from, Press Pass or other companies that, there's a card that I don't have it on hand, from a card company called Wheels. And there was an insert called Thunderball. And it has a giant piece of a basketball. Like the whole card you've got the player, you get some hollow foil, and all behind it is a giant piece of a basketball. It doesn't say anything if it was a game-used basketball, if it's a real, like, no idea. But nobody did anything like that, and nobody's heard of those, right? Wheels Thunderball, like, who's heard of that?
I've never heard of it, but now I want one. So thank you.
Come see it up. So this is this sponsored by? No,
it's not. They can't.
Not yet.
Andy,
come on, get at us.
Get that checkbook, Andy.
But yeah, so one of the takes that I've heard on the Fanatics news with the NFL PA that I think is more accurate. So, and I'll give flowers to the person I heard this from. So it's Carvin, who's, a genius when it comes to all things hobby. And he has some inside information in terms of like how things like this work. So I take his word for a little bit more than other people. He has said that essentially what he believes will happen is we're not going to see any big impact because the NFLPA had to sign off on a lot of the pre-production stuff from Panini. So anything that they already signed off on is gonna have the green light to be produced. There's stuff that's kind of like already been produced and stuff like that. Now there might be some delays. Some of the retailers might be like, okay, we're gonna wait to see what happens. But his take is we're still going to see a lot of, maybe not all, but a lot of that full slate of the new Panini stuff. And then we might also see some stuff from Topps, Fanatics, whatever branding they decide to go under. So yeah, if you really like a rookie this year, I don't think that you're going to have trouble getting a nice card of theirs if you want.
So next year might be a little bit more difficult, right? Because they won't have signed off on anything. And technically Fanatics doesn't have the NFL license yet, and Panini doesn't have the player's license. So next year is really probably the problem.
Makes me wonder if Panini's going to go the route of like late 80s, early 90s Upper Deck, where they're just printing nonstop, because at this point you've got nothing to lose specifically for football.
Yeah. Here's another question. And like a lot of like our followers who, they ask me questions like I know stuff. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. Like I'll ask. I'll see if I can find out for you. But
sure.
I had several people message me today and be like, what does this mean for people who have redemptions? Does this mean you're not going to get? I'm like, you're likely not going to get a redemption. I feel like that's like if they don't already have it, if it wasn't already done, that's it. You're done.
Would it be fair to say, regardless of this news, you're probably not getting your redemption?
Yes.
I think that's fair. So one of the takes, this is my own take. I haven't heard this anywhere else, and this could be me just shooting from the hip.
Ooh,
but
breaking news. You're hearing
yes,
here.
yeah, oh yeah, breaking news for me. I have a feeling that next year in Cleveland, Panini's booth is going to be very busy because of all the redemptions that they're not going to be able to fulfill, and those black boxes and stuff or whatever they choose to give are going to be flying all around the place. So,
Kobe stickers for everybody.
Oh man,
some snake skin, all kinds of stuff. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, they're gonna. I don't like it's so wild too with them losing that, because when they didn't do the redemptions last time, everybody got the Panini Mosaic football sparkle packs. Yep. And now they're just like slowly losing every license. What are they gonna have left? Or everybody's gonna get WWE cards?
Maybe
they'll just take whatever they've got in the back room, throw some sort of a stamp on it, and say, "Here you go. Here's a new one of one."
Yep.
So you collect 90s cards, and you've been in the game for a long time. You've been through this before, haven't you?
Yeah, but I didn't really pay close attention. So like when Panini took over from Topps and Upper Deck, I wasn't really paying very close attention. The hobby online space wasn't what it is now. It was really on forums and stuff like that, and I was not on the forums.
Right, because we were all like 12 and 13 when that was going on. And I think you're younger than us. Yeah.
No, like my younger brother actually kept up on more of that news. So like I remember seeing some of the Panini offerings that were like, at Target and stuff like that, and they were not very exciting. The NBA hoops from 2012 was not getting me too excited. Now in hindsight, obviously, if we knew then what we know now, I would have sought out all the Prism I could have grabbed, and I would have sat on it. But yeah, like I don't remember some of the hot takes that were coming out then, but it's like anybody who's going with a take of like the sky is falling and the hobby's gonna die, and like you
People
said,
are
Jeremy,
always going to collect. I never
exactly.
understand that. It's like every other week, some catastrophe has happened where the hobby is now dead.
Hmm.
It's dead. Just so you guys know, this hobby has been a zombie for like decades because it is always dead. And yet here it is still thriving and people are still buying cards. Do you know why? Because I'm going to keep buying cards. I'm sure you're going to keep buying cards. All these kids that are out here collecting are still going to buy cards. And these companies know that. Sometimes I
Yep.
feel like we're living in like a hobby soap opera.
Yeah.
And
Well,
they
and
do
that's
stuff
why.
like this just to stir us up.
Right. Well, and that's why I say I like to get out of my popcorn, because like that's like sometimes some of the hobby drama is it's better entertainment than some of the stuff that's on TV sometimes for me, right? But like you've got to be in the minutia to get some of the stuff. So,
Yep.
if I was to sit down with my wife and say, "Hey, let's turn this on," she'd be like, "What is going on right now? I have no idea who they're talking about, why do I care?" So,
Why do we care what these nerdy men who live in their parents' basements have to say about pictures of men on cards?
I mean, think of like I know individually we can all identify like cool or like awesome posts, but if you were to like as a whole poll the hobby, everybody would name 100 negative stories before they would name 4 or 5 positive stories.
yep.
Everybody wants to be mad all the time.
Yeah, they're only happy if they're mad.
Right. I know people like that in real life. So, IRL. So one of the other things that I've heard people say though, and I definitely agree with this, is like everybody who's like talking about like Fanatics is going to come in and, be the white knight and save the hobby. Like people said that about Panini when they were going to take over, and it didn't take long before people were like, Panini is the worst. So it's like, we're going to go through that same cycle with Fanatics. Like you said, people want to be angry, so people are going to find a reason to be angry at Fanatics about something. So that this too shall pass.
I'm going to say something that Suze, and I repeat this all the time. So Suze, if you're listening, you're amazing. And this has stuck with me so much that I think I've said this like on 5 different podcasts now and to like hundreds of different people. She was on Too Thick Pod and she said something like, I'm going to misquote it because she's so much more eloquent than I am, but she said something along the lines of like, people in this space, people in the hobby need to realize that not everything is made for them. Like not everything is made for you, and it's not with the intention of you to enjoy every single product that is put out there. So maybe it's not for you, but there are people who like it, and just because a product comes out that you're not a fan of doesn't mean that there's not a market for it. And I think that people forget that because they're so self-centered in their own, which is not bad, in their own quest for the cards that they want, that they forget that these companies aren't like, I wonder what like Joe Schmo from Pennsylvania thinks about this brand new product launch they don't care. There is enough market research. They've done their due diligence and they know that this product is going to sell. Maybe not to you, but to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't like a product, just don't buy it.
Yep. Well, like, and that reminds me of like people that complained. I haven't heard it much lately, but like Topps Opening Day is a product that people be like, why do they make this? And it's like, that was, and it's funny because I probably heard this from Suze also, is like, it's not for you. Like, if you don't like it, that's fine. But like, clearly there's a market for it, or else they wouldn't be producing it.
It's so cheap and it's fun to open. People who probably want to buy that is like people who can't afford hobby boxes of everything all the time. And you're mad because now the market's flooded with all of these other cards that are lower end that you perceive as devaluing your cards because they're overprinted, but it's not the same card. And the people that are going to be looking at your very expensive, rare, super high-end Bowman first are not the same people that are going to be ripping Opening Day. And
Right.
if we're going to grow the space, you have to have space for everyone, not just the people who collect exactly the same way you do.
Yep. Yeah. And like hearing, and I don't know if Ruben has said this or other people from Fanatics, but like hearing them say that like they want, and maybe it wasn't even them as other people outside of Fanatics, but like that Fanatics wants every person in a stadium to have a pack of cards in their hands or stuff like that. Like, I think that's a space for a product like an opening day, right? Where like maybe people aren't going to take care of the cards, maybe they're going to stuff it in their jacket pocket, and it's going to, but like they had fun, and maybe they pulled a card of the hometown hero. They're watching the Bulls, and they pulled a Zach LaVine, and he went off for 50 points that game, and the rest of the cards get thrown in the trash, right? But like that can be something fun, and it could be an easy entry point for people to get into the hobby. And maybe out of those 12,000 people in the stadium that night, 3 of them are like, well, what better cards are there of these guys? And then they start getting into collecting. Who knows? But I'm not opposed to stuff like that. Do I think that there's going to be packs of exquisite sitting, in the Boston Garden? No, probably not. That's probably not the space for that to be sold. And I think Fanatics probably has people that are smart enough to know that.
And for the record, it'd be the United Center. It'd be 21,000 people sold out. Everybody fighting for the Patrick Williams card.
You're ridiculous.
I forgot. That's right. You guys love Patrick Williams. I went on a little Patrick Williams heater when I was able to get some modern product, and got a lot of Chronicles Patrick Williams I'll put aside for you guys when I find them.
My man. Appreciate it.
We love Pat. See this right here? That's all like that's all of our like super high, and like this one right there, that's the Logo Man rookie.
Oh,
this whole row here is all one of ones.
Just one of ones.
Just one of ones. I think we have like a dozen. We're insane. We went super hard on Pat, so hopefully he doesn't like do something crazy, like
I don't care. I like him, and it makes me happy, and I don't care what anybody else says.
He doesn't.
Well, and that's the fun. Is like
people laugh at us about it. They're like, "Why him?" I'm like, "Because we like him." I don't know.
Well, and like people have laughed at my like little side PC of Mason Crosby, and like that's fine. It makes me happy. I like it. And that's why they make cards of all these players, is because somebody out there likes the player. And it doesn't have to be, like Sue said, it's not, everything's not for you, So like when you shared the Patrick Williams patch card from the National, I was so happy that you found it, because it's like just seeing the joy that you guys had and talking about it made me happy, because like I can relate with that joy of finding that PC card for my player. So and it can be fun having a player that is not as fought over. Having everybody collect Luka is not gonna be fun.
Yeah. It's hard to get a card if everybody thinks your guy's the guy.
Yeah.
And also, like, if your guy turns out to be the guy and you were like, I told you he was the guy, that's fun too,
Exactly.
Like, we're like, we like sports, and I can watch and I'm like, I think this player might be good. Like, now I've put my money where my mouth is.
Yep.
And again, like I also find this human being as a human being, somebody that I like and I admire, and I wish them the best. You were talking about the National and the experience. I know that you are a diehard penny collector.
Mm-hmm.
Were you able to pick up any grails or anything that was on the list?
Oh yeah. So do I have it at my fingertips? I don't know if I do, but
I'm asking that question because I do have a follow-up that's hobby related. I'm curious about your opinion.
Okay. So I had put out a list before the National of my top 5 want list of cards at the National. And, a lot of the cards that I have on that list are very rare, very hard to find. So it's like just finding it at the National is one feat, but then obtaining it at the National is the next feat. So the number 1 card on that list was the 97-98 Upper Deck game jersey away of Penny. So Penny has 2 game jerseys in 97. One's the home version, one's the away version. I like the away better with the blue and white pinstripe jersey. So that was the number 1 card on my list. And I found that before the sneak peek opened on Wednesday and got it. So, and like I said, I don't have it at my fingertips. I might find it later on. I'll flash it up there.
Jake, can I ask you something real quick?
Yeah.
When you said you found it, was that you literally went and found it, or was that a result of you putting a list out there and having like the DMs get flooded with like the cards coming to you?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, going back to what you had said about me creating the map, which is literally I did. So I had boosts marked off.
Right. I wandered around like an absolute
Right.
the whole time.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, it's so overwhelming, back to my word, that if I found that if I don't do that, the first year I went to the National, I didn't do that. And it was, it was a long time before I found some of the cards I was looking for. And they're absolutely, I know for a fact, some of the cards that I would have picked up got scooped up right before I got to a certain booth. So, learning from other people's experience and stuff like that, I was like, just marking off the booths that I know, I know the person that is there has cards I like. I know, the type of stuff that dealer has, or I've made deals with this dealer in the past or whatever. So like on Wednesday, I could prioritize going to those booths I know, kind of like the hot spots, and then talking to them. Sometimes they have been in, for 24, 48 hours. They've also seen stuff and they might know, hey, you like collect Penny, I've seen this one over here, I've seen that one over there. So somebody on Wednesday had told me that they saw that card, and I was like, okay, great, where? Now I feel like a bloodhound. And they're like, oh, it's over, I'm like, okay, it's in the building somewhere. Great.
It's over by Whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Whatnot banner, which is everywhere. So I don't remember where I was, but Kyle from Wax Museum texted me and said, hey, I found it, and sent me a picture and sent me the booth number. And it was actually very close to where I was. Ooh. So then I made a beeline over there and obtained it. So it was, like you asked, Jeremy, it was because I put that list out, ironically enough. I might have stumbled upon it on my own, but I might have stumbled upon the booth after somebody else had bought it if I didn't put that list out and somebody hit me up.
So in moments when we're talking about cards, we, at least here, we like to talk about how pieces of cardboard were a conduit or the vehicle that helped us establish relationships. And at the end of the day, oftentimes the relationship is greater than the card. This is a situation where like the relationship actually led you to the card, because clearly Kyle thought enough of you that, there's a bunch of hot, sweaty dudes rubbing up on me. I'm looking at my own cards. I've got my own stuff going on, but I know that Jake collects this. I want to take a moment and send him that picture, and he helped you procure obviously number one card on your list. So that's something special to you. So it's what I love about this space. This is the kind of stories that like I want to hear more of.
I agree. We had someone do that for us. That's how we found the Patrick Williams 101 that we ended up picking up at the National. Yep. Was because someone messaged Jeremy on Twitter X, and I never go on Twitter X. So Jeremy then called me and he was like, hey, it's at this booth. But the guy, like,
I hit her with that, it's go time. And she knew what it meant.
Yeah, so I'm like, it's so funny because I couldn't, like, the person was like, it's at the end of the 1800. And I'm like, well, 1800 is that's where the Breakers Pavilion. There's no tables there. Like this booth doesn't exist. And that's when Jeremy got on the map and he's like guiding me like Mission Impossible style. He's like, do you see the garage doors on your?
I'm not even my man. I'm not even computer and tech savvy like that. Like I'm okay, but this inner being, this beast, like this Martin Scorsese or action movie director came out in me. Like we had to make this happen. I was like,
Jeremy
out of body,
out
of body experience. Guide her to the card. She had the card.
He had the force.
Like there was a loud exhale. I fell over and just laid on the ground and convulsed for however long, and I woke up and we procured card. So you got number one on the list. You had 5. Yep. Did you get the other 4?
I did not get any of the other 4, but a week after the National, number 5 on my list showed up on eBay. Low feedback seller, not good pictures, a card in a top loader with no penny sleeve, but it's the card I need. So I was able to get number 5 on the list. It actually just came in on Friday. So I should, yep, here it is. It is the 98 Hoops Bams penny.
Ooh.
And this one is numbered to 250. There is another version of it, the Slam Bams, which has a gold stamp, which are numbered to 100. So I would have taken that if I had found it, but that would have cost a little bit more. So I kind of consider that like almost National pickup because it showed up just after the National, and I just so happened to have some money left over from the National that I didn't blow on other cards. So I was able to use those funds to pick that up.
So do you, and if I'm prying too much, please tell me and we can delete all this. Do you buy cards with the intent of flipping them so you have additional money to go after and chase, pennies and Mason Crosby, the Bears, by the way? Just had to get
Look, this year being a Packers fan is not going to be fun. So I would not be surprised if the Bears do much better than the Pack. I'm expecting to be on the bottom rung of the division. But anyway, that's a different topic.
Womp womp. Sorry.
Yeah, I know.
Welcome to how we feel every damn year.
Right. So
we had Aaron Rodgers literally tell us, "I own you."
Yeah, it was not a great day.
Well, I mean, there were a number of years that Julius Peppers literally owned the offensive line. So, it's gone back and forth. But so I coined myself a reluctant seller. So I'll sell stuff if I have duplicates, and then usually I like to have a little wad of cash with me at the National. So what I'll do is I'll go through my collection and look for duplicates first, and look to move those to other collectors, and then I'll also take a good long hard look at some stuff and be like, do I really need this in my collection? And would I rather have the funds from that card go into one of these other grails? With that being said, as my penny collection goes, I consider myself a completionist as much as possible. So I want to have a copy of every single one of his 90s cards, so if I don't have a duplicate of, say the BAMs, for example, that's not going anywhere unless I was to stumble upon a duplicate. So, occasionally if I find a really good deal on a card, if I already have a copy, I'll pick up another copy of it, and then I'll compare the two and see which one's in better condition. Do I want to grade it? All that kind of stuff. And then, when I decide which one I want to keep in my collection, then I'll move the duplicate, So, that's kind of how I fund my hobby experience. But I also love going through dollar bins, bargain bins, whatever you want to call them. So if I'm going through a bargain bin, I'm definitely looking for value, so if I can pick up a $5 or $10 card for $1, I'll absolutely do that. And then, I'll move it for, and take that profit and move it into a nicer, newer, shinier card for my PC.
I like that. That's smart. I like doing things to completion as well. I think that's important.
Same. So I have reached since we. Wow, you're a terrible human being.
Sorry. Let's continue.
You don't even have a glass with you, so.
No, this is just on the natch, sir.
Yeah.
This is who I am as a person.
It's not wrong. So Courtney mentioned earlier, I think we have 12 or 13 Patrick Williams 1-of-1, and in the Panini area where we'll probably only have 5% of the 1-of-1s that are out there
because there's so many.
But we have now, because we're playing in that space and that's our guy, anytime one becomes available, you feel this need, I have to get it, because I am so fearful that some other person's going to get it and I will never see it again.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if the numbers work for you, I know there's a guy that I actually met in Atlantic City that lives near me, that every time I've set up at the Springfield show, we've made a deal, and he, he's very transparent, and he's like, I sell on Whatnot. So what here do you have that you could sell me at let's say 70% of comps, right? And we'll go through, and there's plenty of stuff that I've had in my collection for a decade that's just yeah, I mean, 70% of comps is fine with me, because at the end of the day, if I'm willing to move it, it's because I want the funds, I want to get the cash to, and I don't have any problem with him going and selling on Whatnot for full price. Good for you. You make a little bit, I get what I want out of it, and we're both happy. So I like seeing situations that are, situations where everybody can win, or everybody can feel good at the end of the day. That can be in trades or whatever. So yeah, I've been in that exact same situation, in a different format, in person deal. But it's I'm fine to take less on this card than, the full sticker, because, I don't need to, and that other person can enjoy it.
And I would add that some of the additional ROI that you get is each additional deal moving forward that much quicker. What the deal is going to be, and it removes some of that friction. So you might sacrifice a little bit of money or margin, or however you want to look at it on the front end, but those future deals, at that point, that's just we put a lot of value on that.
Yeah.
I know when Nat Turner reached out and wanted to buy a card for me, I sold it to him for nothing, because I still want that gold Jordan that he has.
Yeah, no, and I know, like, I had a football PMG, like a common, that Nat needed for a set. So I said to him, "Hey, do you need this for your set?" He said, "Yep." He said, "What are you selling it for?" I said, "You know what these are worth more than I do." He said, "Okay, how about this?" Great, done deal, right? Like, we don't need to make this into overly laborious. I have
Well, I
something
wasn't
that you need for your
expecting you
set.
to
I
come
don't
out
need
that
it.
you actually sold cards to Nat. I was like, I never sold a card to Nat Turner. I was
When
just
we interviewed him, we were talking about this insert set, the StarQuest set, and
Yeah.
we had built one set and then we built the other, and all that was left, and that, Jesus Christ, that's a
It's
big
the gold.
glass.
I saw somebody once said I drink out of a fishbowl. I mean, they're not wrong, but
That thing's bigger than your head, man. That's awesome. Good for you.
That's not a glass, it's a chalice.
But when we were looking for the StarQuest Gold,
Mhm.
at that point, like, the last sale was like $150,000, and we knew Nat had one. So, like, as we were interviewing him, we're like, "How are we gonna get that
I kept teasing
StarQuest from
about
you?"
it, yeah. So that's become a thing for me now. Whenever I can just like crowbar that into any conversation that's going to be like out there where, you know, I know Nat likes to listen to our podcast he tells me we talk all the time. We're friends. And he's like, your podcast is great. And I hear you talking about that gold. Again, this never happened. I'm just making stuff
No,
up.
but you tried going to a gunfight with a stick, and Jake's like, "Yeah, I actually sold him cards."
I was like,
It was a So speaking of the StarQuest Gold, that is one that is near and dear to my heart. So that was my number one penny want for a long, long time.
which StarQuest Gold though? Are you
The one you're talking about, 98.
Okay, because there's the 2008 set was pretty
Yeah,
cool
no.
too, but
There's no
not
penny in that.
no,
Yeah.
there's not.
Yeah.
But you're
Yeah,
right.
no,
I
the
never
98.
did the penny set.
Yeah, so I was able to get the penny about a year ago now. So yeah, I love those. And that was one of those sets that I ripped with my brothers and my dad. I mean, a number of boxes of 98 UD Choice. And we were always wondering what those four, at that time in the Beckett, they were just listed as StarQuest 4-stars. We didn't know
Yeah.
what colors they all were. So we just dreamt of, like, what could this thing look like? Because we had pulled, the base blues, we'd pulled the 2-star greens, we pulled the 3-star red. My brother actually pulled the 3-star red of Jordan. He's a Jordan collector, so he was geeked out on that.
That's awesome.
So yeah, we kept ripping and hoping we'd pull a gold, and never did. So that was one of those pennies that I had always had on my list. But I was also kind of picky because those are really condition sensitive.
They're
Yep.
so well. I guess
Yeah.
you could be picky with the Jordan. I would take it in any damn condition. I don't care. I
Right.
want a
Well,
Jordan.
so the reason why I say, I was offered a copy of the card by somebody, and it had like some foil loss, like it almost like paper loss on the top edge.
Yeah, these cards are super rough.
Yeah, it was one of those things. The price that he was asking was a little bit high, and I knew that amount of damage would bother me. So I was just like, yeah, no, like, it's just not the right one, because I don't want something in my collection that I'm like, I still want to replace it, right? Like, I want the one, and I don't want to have to look for another one. Yeah, so I ended up getting one actually because I put out a video of my top 10 Penny Hardaway PC want list, and somebody saw that and hit me up, and they live somewhere in Texas, and they had pulled that card as a kid back in 1999, and they had loved it, but they wanted it in the right collection, and they saw my video, and they're like, this belongs with you. So
That's a great story.
yeah.
I've learned one thing from Jake today. I've learned a lot, but the one thing is key is I'm just going to start making videos and lists and throwing them out there and letting the internet do the work for me.
This is what I want, guys. Please.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been very hesitant to do that, and it really wasn't until the last year or so that I started. And I was actually talking to, like, Chris and Kyle and some other friends in the hobby, like, should I do this? Because I was always nervous that I was going to put out a list like that, and somebody with a card on my list would have it and ask for a king's ransom for it, and it would just be like, that's going to hurt even more that now I know where one is, and it's just unobtainable.
Yeah.
But
I was actually thinking that as you were.
We've
Yeah.
experienced that, and it sucks because you know what's happening right away, and so you have to, like, no, we're not interested. Sorry.
Right. And it's a tough thing to do because there's a lot of people that, that you got me over a barrel, but my experience has been the exact opposite, which, I'm surprised by, but I'm happy to say.
You know what that means to me? What you just said, how yours has been the exact opposite. I think that proves that in this space there's significantly more good than bad, but we just
Mhm.
talk about the bad. Because like my first go-to when you were saying that and when he was talking about the list was like, if someone knows you want the card, they're gonna be like, well, it's an insane amount and I have it, and this is like, maybe it's a one of one, this is the only one, and if you don't pay what I want for it, you
Mhm.
can't have it. I mean, they're shooting themselves in the foot because a card is only worth what a card is worth, right?
Right.
And at some point, if I'm not willing to buy it and I'm the guy that's going to buy it and you're like holding it for ransom, at some point you're not going to be able to sell it. Or,
Mhm.
we've had that where people have like an atrocious amount of money for a card that they know that we want. And then after a while they reach out. They
Yeah.
reach out like, hey, how about this much? And I'm like, well, I was actually thinking this much. And they're like, done. And I'm like, you could have saved yourselves months of not having this money by just like
Right.
selling it for a reasonable amount on the front end.
Well,
But
and it could also help foster a relationship for other deals and other, who knows what could happen down the road. Now you've got that taste in your mouth of like, this person's trying to rake me over the coals. And like, I always think about like Christina's Maxi.
I was literally thinking about that in my head.
Yeah. And it's like, I know that if that showed up, I would, like, if let's say it was at a local show that I happen to be at, I would do whatever I could to get that for her in her hands, move mountains. And I'm sure that if one showed up online and somebody was trying to rake her over the coals and she just kind of put out the bat signal, we'd all do whatever we could to chip in or whatever to make sure that she got it, because it's just like, that's where it belongs.
Yeah.
I remember we had a local show. I thought I found it.
Really?
I remember I thought we were sending like pictures, and then it turns out it was she needs the green out of 5, right?
Yeah, the fast break, I think.
Yeah.
And it was a green one, but I think it was like out of 25 or
Yeah.
something. It wasn't the right one. Because there's so many.
Right.
We were really excited for a second. I'm like,
yeah, that would have been incredible. I mean, I keep saying I feel like she'll get it at some point. It's just, I don't think all that product's been broken, but
I agree. Question for you is I know that there are a few, at least publicly, I know there's a few people that collect penny heavy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, are you guys in a group chat together? Are you guys in deep competition with one another? Like, and the reason I ask is I went to Burbank. We went out to PSA and I went to Burbank with TNT Cards, who's our group subber in Michigan. And I was spending time with Tommy, and I had no idea that he had this massive Pavel Bure PC.
Okay.
Hockey player. And so he was telling me about it, that like nobody can get these cards because the collectors get them and then they just disappear. They never come up. And so I was, fast forward a little bit of time, I was chatting with Vadim, Bagels and Wax, and I've come to find out he's a Pavel Bure, and he tells me the same thing, that like everybody knows everybody knows where every card is, and it's like this weird, like, and this is my interpretation of what they told me, that it's like everybody's hunting for the same cards. Okay. Nobody's selling, but they're also in a chat together, chopping it up. Is that what is it similar for Penny?
So it's the Penny collector. It's a unique and diverse group, I would say. So I first got into like really online hobby social media space through a Facebook group of Penny Hardaway card collectors. Now, it's not just card collectors in that group. It's shoe collectors and guys that like jerseys and all kinds of stuff. But so that group was set up by Brian Wells from Ship My Card. He set that up years later. But he set it up actually so Penny collectors could kind of coordinate and not bid each other up. So, kind of one of those things like, almost like a handshake deal, like, hey, this card's coming up and I would be willing to spend $500 on it, and then if somebody else is like, well, I'd spend $700 on it, like, okay, well, I'm not going to bid 500 if you'd be willing to bid 700, and then hopefully you win it for 250 because I'm not bidding on it, type of thing. And then the next one that comes up, hopefully I can get it for 250 type deal. I'm sure there's probably some gamesmanship that can happen in there, but for the most part it worked. And then that group got very large. And it turned less into that type of coordination, more like, people with duplicates and moving them, still a good camaraderie. But there would obviously be some rivalries that would grow over time there'd be certain cards that, like, somebody bought this one and, oh, I really need it, trade it to me. No, it's in my PC, so, some people would get their feelings hurt over that, but very little. But like I said, there's less of that coordination going on. So we started a group chat on Instagram with probably like a couple dozen like exclusively penny collectors, or like, their number one PC is penny. We try to do the same thing, but what it ends up turning into is more of, hey, I saw this card pop up on eBay. They shoot out the link. So everybody kind of knows that it's available, if it's for bid or whatever. And then, if it's, a bin and it sells, it's okay, who got it? So there was actually one last night that sold. It was a 94 SP championship, future playoff heroes die cut. It's a mouthful. So that was in an SGC 8, and the guy just posted and they're like, oh, I won it because it wasn't listed as a die cut and I got a better deal on it and stuff like that. So we're all happy for him. So there's definitely some camaraderie there, but, I haven't seen a lot of, people kind of, just, I shouldn't say there have been quite a few actually instances where it's like, hey, I need this card. It's the last one I need for this run. And people will say, hey, I have it. And they'll, give it to them for cost or give it to them outright. So there has been plenty of that. It's a diverse group. There's definitely some competitive people in the group. There's definitely some people that, are a little bit more secretive and they're kind of there, but they're in the shadows and stuff. But I would say overall, it's a good group of collectors. A lot of very long tenured collectors, and a lot of collectors in the Philippines also. There's a lot of penny guys in the Philippines.
That's cool. It makes me think of like Drake's PC with his Peyton Manning collection and all. Like I know he has a Peyton Manning group of people where they like, hey, this one's for sale or that one or whatever. I think that's super cool. I know that we collect Patrick Williams. We've been obviously talking about that all the time, but we have people like message us now. They're like, hey, I'm gonna buy this card. Like, are you going after this too?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you are, then I'm just not even going to bid on it, because
Yep.
they know how Jeremy is. If he decides he wants something, like, he's getting it. And usually, we've gotten to the point now where we have so much that it has to like really move the needle where we're going to like go to like at bat for something like that.
So if you had to, where do you rank amongst penny collectors? Because I like Penny. I remember Penny, but I don't collect his cards. Although every time there's that titanium horizontal card that's like cool. Acetate that's got Jordan on it.
Yep.
Every time I see that card, I'm like, I want to buy it because like Penny was awesome. Yep. Obviously Jordan. It's a sweet looking card, but I'm just tying up X amount of dollars for a card that like it's awesome, but it just doesn't quite fit. But like in the grand scheme of penny collectors, where do you rank yourself?
Boy, so I wouldn't rank myself very highly. And that's not just for me to, humble brag or anything like that, but there's a lot of different ways you could rank a collector, I think. And there's no one right way. And especially for a guy like Penny, like my PC's really laser focused, not 100%, but on his 90s cards. He's got a lot of Panini cards out there. So like if you were to go with who has the most unique penny cards, I think on Trading Card Database, which not everybody uses, I'm like second or third on that list. But I don't have a lot of the Panini era stuff. Other people might have more. But also like there's a lot of like really big penny cards that I don't have that other people have, so like you're talking PMGs. I don't have any penny PMGs, legacies. I've got a few, but not, so there's some people that their PC is more focused on, I just want some of those like headline grabbing pennies. And I don't want some of the smaller ones, which I want all of them. So it's like, how would I rank myself? It would depend on, all those different criteria. So like, probably somewhere in the middle of the pack. I think I've got a good penny collection, but I don't think there's plenty of guys I know that I'm very jealous of some of the cards that they have. So,
I think there might be a massive letdown once you get them all. There might be like a brief moment of I did it, followed by like,
now what?
What's next?
Yeah.
And
I've actually listened to, I can't remember what it was, but there was a podcast where this guy did that. He finally finished some collection. I'm gonna have to go back and find it because it was such a good episode. And he finally finished it, and it was like he didn't know what to do with himself. He's like, I've been building this for years, and now I have every single one. and I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah,
like,
and like I feel like my goals for my penny collection are something that will take a lifetime to try to accomplish. But like, there's certain cards on that list that I'm not going to take off of the list. But like, I might never get a PMG green of penny. There's only 10 of them.
Yeah.
You know, like it just might not happen, and I'm okay. Like, if I, for whatever reason, could not collect any more penny cards from this day forward, I'm very satisfied with my collection. I enjoy it. Like, pull out a lot of the cards and I'll look at them and think about the stories behind them and enjoy the design aspects and all kinds of stuff. But I intentionally kind of set my goals very lofty because I expect it to be something that takes me, until my last day on Earth type of thing,
that's
to keep going.
That's like a podcast in itself, like the Penny Chronicles National 2019. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? And like, because I'm sure a lot of those cards have just an incredible story that go with them, where like you could tell it in a 30-second version, or you could actually give the 5-10 or like the long edit version.
Oh yeah.
that's awesome.
It seems like you're happy. You have a plethora of various cards. What's one that's realistically that you feel like you'll be able to grab in the next year or two that's on your bucket list?
Yeah, so the next one, after having produced the 5 card list, the next one on that list is the 97-98 Topps Finest Gold Embossed Die Cut Refractor, number 74. So that depend, like, all of those are green to some extent, but if one is significantly less green than the other ones, those go for a premium. If something gets graded highly or if it's raw, like all those things, but that's one that I think I might be able to grab again if it comes available. They're only being 74. That's not a guarantee. And I didn't see any at National this year. Not to say that there weren't, some on somebody's backpack or whatever, but it's one that it would also take the right timing, right? Because like if the card comes up and it's available and I don't have the funds for it and I don't have the time to move the pieces and all that kind of stuff, then, I might have to let it pass by and hope that, I can get the next one, or I can beg a fellow collector to give up a copy for me.
That's all you can hope for. That's sort of the fun of it. I feel like people underestimate the hunt in your collection when you're doing it, because sometimes you get so caught up in like the little things that you're doing, you don't think about the actual like how far you've come and how if you looked at mine and Jeremy's collection, it is not a straight line. It is zigzagged all over the place. It's up and down. It's this, that, and the other thing. It's branched into like a lot of weird like angles. I don't know. It's part of the fun of it though, right? It's like an adventure.
Well, and it's also, I think, a challenge because it's so easy to get distracted along that path by all these other shiny I'm just sitting here looking and like, here's a random Reggie White card that I have. I don't remember why I have it, where I got it, what I spent on it. I like it. I'm not getting rid of it, but it's just like, it's very easy to get distracted. And then it's like, okay, maybe I have $1 into it. Maybe it's $10. I don't know, but that's $1 to $10 I could have sitting there waiting for that other penny grail. So like there's all of those like almost like side quests that's like, can you stay focused on that main goal? And sometimes no, I can't. So that's okay.
I'm sure this has happened to you, but it was like maybe a few months ago, and I don't remember the specific card, but we were in a situation. We always talk about like personal finance, keeping hobby money separate from personal money, trying to be responsible, not overextend ourselves. But it was a situation where maybe did pretty well with a graded like a PSA or an SGC order, moved those cards, and we're just in a good spot where we had like a good, healthy amount of cards, but we were cash rich. And it was like, it was nice. So we went out and did a little bit of shopping, and like legitimately the moment, like within like a couple hours of spending said money, a grail popped up, and it's like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, I've been looking for this card for so long. I go out and spend money on a bunch of stuff to like, to flip and stuff like that. And that happens once in a while. It makes for a fun story, and you scramble and you learn to be creative and lean on those relationships. Like, I know if I got a penny, I'm calling Jake and he's going to buy it.
Yes. We're like, we need to sell a bunch of cards right now so we can get this immediately.
Right.
And it is what it is, but that's part of it. That's part of the fun. It's part of using your relationships with people and having stuff that you know that they want. So in a time where it's like, hey, I'm going to sell this to you for like, less than fair market value because I need to move it so I can get this card that I really, really want. And it's beneficial to everyone, so.
Yep. Yeah.
This is so much fun. I feel like we have covered a million. It doesn't feel like we've been talking for an hour.
This is the most non-hobby night school ever. And I think that speaks volumes to you because we really appreciate and respect what you've done. Your social media presence is not lost on us. We enjoy it. And we listen to a lot of what you have to say because there's so much to learn from it. I feel like you do a tremendous job articulating yourself. And I like what you're doing, man. I appreciate you jumping on, and I'm glad that we were able to kind of just go. It was kind of wonky and square. It was like our collecting journey. It was all over the place, up, down, left, right.
This is Hobby Night School independent study.
It's a study group that, you bring your glass of wine and see what studying actually gets done.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, this is the library round table for Hobby College. We're just like, we're supposed to be doing one thing, but we're just going to talk about everything else.
Right. Yeah, no, this has been a blast. And like, I genuinely enjoy both of you. I appreciate all the kind words, and I feel this exact same way. I love your guys' content. I don't watch as much of it as sometimes I would like my time to be available to watch, but yeah, it's a challenge, just like us having the funds for all of our PC, having the time to watch all the content. But I know that when I see a post from you guys, I pay attention if there's something, especially around National, when I was seeing that Jeremy wasn't there, I was like, okay, well, I feel bad for him. I don't really jump on live stream selling, but if I have time, which I didn't, I was like, maybe I'll check it out. But yeah, it's enjoyable to have people that you can lean on in the hobby.
I'll tell you what, the moment I'm able to lie to myself or trick my mind. And the moment I heard that there was no air conditioning, I was like, I'm not missing anything. I'm going to go jump in the pool, have a beer, and then talk some smack.
It was so hot.
And I landed the card.
It was the sweatiest I've ever been at a card show. And card shows are typically hot and sweaty. I had to record podcasts live, and I looked like a drowned sewer troll. So I'm like, well, this is what it is. So.
The one thing that I found that was nice is everybody was having that same experience. So there was no judgment being passed. So oh, look at this sweaty person over here. So
no, I saw one guy walk over with paper towels to give to another guy so that guy could wipe his face. And I'm like, look at these people. They're we're in it together. We're all in this trenches with our sweaty swamp asses all together. So.
Oh, yeah.
All the fat kids were, yes.
Yes. Well, you all know how we feel.
Feel my plight. Awesome, man. So everybody can follow you at 90s_bball_cards.
Anywhere else you want to shout out?
Yeah, so Instagram, Facebook is a little bit different. So Instagram, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, X, Twix. We can call it Twix now, right?
Yes,
ooh, nice.
I like it.
Breaking news again.
Yes.
A little bit of TikTok.
First Twix.
Yes, first Twix. And yeah, so Facebook, I'm also there, but I messed up and I didn't add the S, so it's 90 b-ball cards. So.
Yes, and they won't let you change it either.
No, I've tried.
Fish bowls and Merlot. Awesome, man. Well, we appreciate you jumping on. We look forward to the next time. Happy hunting on those pennies, and I hope that you have a good night. Enjoy Six Flags tomorrow.
Thank you. I will.
Hands up on the coasters.
Yeah.
For those kids. Take care, man.
All right.